You this post-breast cancer needs everyone to care. This global illness needs everyone to care. Now wherever you go, you go. Yes, we know we must win. We will fight this thing called cancer. We are champions. We are black people. We like it. We will win. Yes, we know we must win. We will fight this thing called cancer. We are champions. We are black people. We like it. We will win. If we fight, we won't lose. We won't fail if we faint. No, we will overcome. Prostate cancer wherever. No matter what we do, we know we fail at all. We know they move forward. We know they give up for life. Because I care, you care. Yes, we know we must win. We will fight this thing called cancer. We are champions. We are black people. We like it. We will win. Yes, we know we must win. We will fight this thing called cancer. We are champions. We are black people. We like it. We will win.
Trust me, you will be okay. You'll fight through it.
Hello, and good afternoon, everyone. As we are waiting for a couple more people to come into the room, feel free to drop into the chat where you're watching from today. We would love to see exactly how far our community has reached today. So, in a couple moments, we'll get started. And my name is Bims Odedina. I am the media director here with iCCaRE Consortium. Today's session, we will feature two shows and two different episodes. One is Clinical Trials Demystified. It is a sit-down interview with the creator of the show, Dr. Kim Barbo-Johnson, and our host and interviewer, Stephen Johnson, as we get a little bit more in depth about what exactly does this series, Clinical Trials Demystified, cover. And it also breaks down why clinical trials are important, why they matter, as well as how they impact patient care as well as patient innovation. And we will go ahead and get started in a bit. Okay, so we have Jacksonville in the house. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get this started.
Welcome. As always, you are in a safe, fun, and fabulous place where we're going to be really deep diving into the iCCaRE Insider, people behind the scenes. The progress. I'm your host, Stephen Johnson, and I have my long lost now. We're still trying to go through Ancestry to see exactly where the connection meet, but I call her my cousin, Dr. Johnson. Welcome to the space. How are you? Yes.
I am so happy to be here with you, cousin Stephen.
Yes,
Nice to be
I'm
here.
happy that you're here with me.
Thank you.
Tell us a little about yourself.
So, outside of being Stephen Johnson's cousin, I also have the pleasure of working as a physician in the Northeast Florida community for 30 years, half of which I've spent doing clinical trials, and a significant part of that working in the cancer research space, which brings us to how we got to meet in the world of prostate cancer. So, I work as the Director for Community Clinical Trials Administration at my organization, where I have the pleasure of really connecting curated clinical trials, or a select group of clinical trials that I feel would benefit people in the community who are not usually people who would participate in clinical trials. And so I work with physicians and patients, clinical trial teams, scientists across the community and at my institution, and I'm honored to actually do that in the space of prostate cancer, because I also serve in the clinical trial space for the iCCaRE program in particular for the grant, and get to oversee what we call the Clinical Trials and Translational Science Core. That's a mouthful,
Yes.
but it's TRACS. So I'm
Okay.
also, I get to work with the TRACS Core for iCCaRE.
Speaking of iCCaRE, what brought you to that space with them particularly?
Oh, Falakio-Detna is a short answer. But, so I'm a trained family physician. So 30 years ago, I came to this town, trained at Mayo Clinic, and what I call womb to tomb. So I was not I didn't fashion myself a cancer specialist or even prostate cancer. While I have always been an advocate for underrepresented groups, under-resourced groups, I did that, from womb to tomb. A few years ago, because of my work in the community and clinical trial space, my sister, mentor, friend, Dr. Falakio-Detna, who has 3 decades plus of prostate cancer specific experience, came to me, and we started talking about ways that I could collaborate. Her passion has always been the community, and I was in the community. And so we talked about how could we use the connections and the processes that I had created to be successful in other trials to really enhance some of the work that she was doing in these million-dollar trials for the federal government and iCCaRE in particular. So joined her team and came back to the clinical trial cancer space, and cancer then, as intimidating as it first sounded, it became kind of like my bread and butter for the day. And not too much after officially being in this space, I realized, as a family doctor, I've really been in the cancer space all of my career. So it became less intimidating, because as a physician, I know now things I didn't even know when I started doing medicine, things about screening and prevention and early intervention and genetics. And all the things that I was doing as a primary care doctor was really to prevent cancer, to find things early. So I think I've been a cancer doctor in the closet without knowing it all along, and so it's a very comfortable space. So it really was what I call kismet, the stars aligned for this particular role, but I really see it just kind of like life full circle for me.
Wow. So when you were talking, a key word stuck out to me is accessibility. You have the opportunity to get that access and share that access, but what does accessible health, good health, great health, those key words, what does that mean to you, both from a professional and personal point of view?
That's a great question. Accessible health is important, but accessibility isn't everything. As a scientist, as a physician scientist, we know that you can have 2 people in the kitchen and one person can be hungry in the same kitchen. So it's important that patients aren't only able to get into where there's accessible care, into the kitchen, but that they trust the food that's being served, that the people who are cooking look clean, and the people who are serving them in medicine look trustworthy. So accessibility is not only a physical and a geographic thing for me personally or professionally, but it means having an opportunity to have equitable care that will allow you to get the best outcome that you can get from people that you trust in a system that was created to serve your health and to produce wellness equitably and justly. And so access is important, particularly in states like ours, where sometimes it's really limited to like an insurance conversation and a benefit conversation. But there are many people who may have access or may have insurance or have a telephone to make an appointment, and yet they don't go. And that's because it's not or, it's an and thing. If you must, even if you have the benefit, the financial wherewithal, the resources, you must be met with something that is going to be of benefit to you. And so accessibility is when those two things come together and serve the patient and the community well.
So, and again, you're touching so many points. Let me look at my notes, but
Wow.
I'm telling you,
promise.
when you talk about accessibility, you brought up a good point. Sometimes accessibility is because of lack thereof or lack of knowing. When it comes to your everyday job and the things that you do, how do you and your team address those hurdles, especially in the Black and brown community where it is so prevalent and systems and data has shown that we have
It's
reserved
exhausting.
less?
It's exhausting. So the privilege that I have to sit at tables, I use as carefully, cautiously, and proactively as possible. So in my position and career-wise, I've been able to sit at tables where I could say, maybe that's a little too complicated. Maybe we need that translated into different language. Maybe we need hours that match patient times when they're not at work to make appointments. And so there are times where my role has allowed me to impact policy and create some operational changes. But then there are times when I have been able to recognize where there really are no means for certain people, and that means there's no bus station that's close to my institution. There's no, access to a ride share, and that has also meant me advocating to take what we have to the patient. And that has been probably one of the bigger joys of the last decade of my work, is being able to decentralize a lot of what we do. And it starts with education. I mean, it's not just because I think you need blood pressure medicine, I go and, here's blood pressure medication. But it starts with educating patients to be partners and advocates for their own health. Advocating for patients to understand what trust and trustworthiness looks like. Advocating patients to, essentially not cut off their nose to spot the face, to understand that we get it. We understand that there are challenges. We're doing the very best that we can. And while we're only 5% of all the physicians in this country are Black and brown, according to the National Medical Association, and that number is not a great number. We do live in a community where we kind of assume that, there are a lot of people. But in general, there's still a very small number of people who are Black, African American, self-identifying as Black physicians to do this work. So as long as we're all doing it together, as long as we're starting local, as we're making sure that there's accessibility, we're supporting educational initiatives, we are making sure that our patients, whether it's one-on-one in a clinical space, or if it's at a church event, or if it's at a Pride festival, that we are making sure that we are creating partners for health and wellness, and empowering, right? Empowering patients to be part of their health and wellness journey. And when, more needs, more critical situations arise, my dad was diagnosed with a cancer, and what happens when a person, West Indian like my dad, with a very thick accent, goes to a hospital and they're like, we can't understand what he says. Making sure that I remember that experience, and I recognize that there's a lot of education that needs to be done internally to make sure that the entire team of medicine is more sensitive and more culturally humble when it comes to diversity and it comes to difference in how patients are showing up once they show up. So,
because education is so important, and
It
I
is
said that is
extremely
one thing that is so valuable. You can't even, I say you can't put a price on education, and it is something that nobody can take from you. And once you have it, honey, you run with it. That's what I said. Run with the education, people. But
yes, and it's a marathon kind
Yes.
of run too, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
And that's important. So, there are times where, and sometimes there are situations where you just want to win the race, right? And we want to win the race and we get the W and we're out of there. But for this space, when we look at the gaps that we're looking at in medicine, particularly where prostate cancer, where iCCaRE is concerned, we look at changes that are right before us. We look at treatment that's evolving. We look at just all the wonders of modern medicine, and yet we look at Black men who are dying 4 times more, being diagnosed 4 times more. We're looking at a burden of a particular cancer that one group of people really is just carrying a significant amount of that burden, right? So I can educate you that the burden exists. I can educate you on the statistics. But what I also need to do is understand. Like you need to educate me,
Exactly.
right?
Work
to
together.
Understand, right? To understand what are the reasons that you're not engaging. You know, what can I do to make this an easier process for you? How do I have a conversation? Who do you want to have the conversation? Because I may be saying that you need to have a screening test done. I may be telling you that if you're getting up 4 times at night to urinate. I may be telling you that if you fear, sexual dysfunction and you're, that's the reason. And I can tell you all that, and that's education, but you need to tell me what would success look like for you? How can I meet you where I can help you to discuss your biggest fear in this space? And that's an education that's really a back and forth. We educate each other. And it's also an education that's a marathon, because that conversation might be different with different people. Different points of your education might change what you need. And it's important that we just meet each other where we are when it comes to the educational journey in medicine.
Exactly. I would say, and this may be a little bit biased, y'all, but I would say, no, we are one of the most diverse and educated and wonderful folks. Yes.
We are, and that's our challenge too. I think that we often broad stroke people. You're Black, you're brown, you're Asian, whatever. And when it comes to Black and brown people, we are different culturally, how we were raised, what's important to us, what we hear, how we hear things. We're different in the what we call genetic admixture, and so understanding that even is extremely important, to recognize that you've got to be like multilingual, right, in your education. It doesn't mean a different dialect, but you've got to understand who you're talking to and all the things that make that person who they are.
And with that information, how's it received from the community? I mean, we just said it right now. Our community is diverse, so you're going to have all walks of life. You're going to have to, just really be a chameleon and transform to make sure that the information you're giving, that its importance is shared and that is well received, and not they just be hearers but doers of the word that you're providing for them. Okay, but when it comes to receiving, how is the community receiving your information?
Differently. I would say on balance, personally, I have spent 30 years in the community. I've raised my children in this community. I've answered yes to many things, to show up at places where they wanted to, hear about blood pressure or prenatal health and other things. So when I enter into space now to talk about cancer or some of the more difficult topics, they trust me, right? Good. And so personally, I have really worked to not only hear, to be doers of the word, but also to earn the trust of communities. And when you earn that trust and when you begin with the end in mind, I think that serves you well. But in general, as we look at, you said the community is diverse, it requires the ability to meet people where they are. And so people will hear you if they understand you. And more than that, I think this is either a quote by someone or an idiom of some sort, but it's often said that people can hear what you say, but they actually want to make sure that they understand that you care about them. And so that's extremely important when you're meeting the community, to make sure that you are part of the community, making sure that they understand that you care about them, not about your science or your interest or or what you need. And I have to tell everyone, and because we're in a society where it sounds selfish when you say, what's in it for me, but I tell everyone to start there. You must ask, what's in it for me? Because we have to be discerning, right? And I know you probably have a scripture on that, too, right? But we have to be discerning and ask those questions when people are entering this space, particularly if you haven't had a relationship with them in the healthcare space, and ask, what is in it for me? And you must wonder, what is in it for me? And once you have those things transparent and on the table, I think that's where, honesty and transparency starts. And that's where we can start to grow. This is not a comfortable space, particularly when you're starting to talk about what we do in iCCaRE. cancer is a big word.
Yes.
Cancer is
Yes.
we have many different opportunities.
We think of death all the time with
Yes,
cancer.
it's a big C,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
so while we've made significant progress, there are more than 18 million cancer survivors. And even while that's a great statistic, those are 18 million people that's wondering if the cancer is going to come back,
Ever come back.
right? So it's not a process where it's one and done. And we must understand kind of the entire ecosystem of the patient journey, the care journey, the treatment journey, and recognize, like you said, that it's difference that exists in how we're showing up, difference in time, and that there's no one and done, there's no one size fit all. And that's what I love about opportunities like this, where we get to work together and focus our energies on a group that really is taking the hit, that has an increased burden. The science is what it is. We can get to the root causes and try to figure out why so that we move forward. But we also need to work with what we have and what we know. And so while we're trying to work on how to identify things earlier, how to create models in science so that we can recognize disease earlier, understand PSAs differently, change screening. But once we show up in community, we have to see our brothers and our fathers and our uncles and and we've got to understand that this is a time for us to really work on how to move this needle in a direction that's more positive. We cannot continue to not treat and better understand the survivor point of view, the pre-survivor point of view, what's causing patients to be resistant about entering medicine and medical care in particular, understanding the lifestyle of the Black man in particular, and what's best for them, because it's all important. So we may be trying to get to a place where we want to educate about prostate cancer, screen for prostate cancer, treat early prostate cancer, help you to survive prostate cancer, help you to live with prostate cancer, help to understand that once you have a diagnosis, your whole family is experiencing prostate cancer with you. And so we may take all of that into consideration. But the one wonderful thing about iCCaRE and behind the scenes, there are many different people working behind the scenes to tackle different parts of that journey. So there may be physicians and scientists like me. There may be scientists who are working on models who are helping to get, the science together. There are people who are working on survivorship, who are going out on weekends and just sitting down and saying, hey, brother, tell me, brother, like, what's going on? How did your wife receive this information? How do you feel as a man? What were your challenges? And then we're creating technology in other spaces, and God knows I am not a techie, but under the same iCCaRE umbrella, we're creating tools, right, that will help younger men and older men, and we're recognizing the generational differences of how to move forward on this marathon for the prostate cancer, in the prostate cancer ecosystem, on the cancer journey.
I think about, because you're touching upon the culture and teamwork and how there is no I in teams and teams. I think of a commercial, or I think it was one of these Lord commercials, and you see a person, maybe in a wheelchair or something, but then it fades out, and you see, the EMT, and then you see doctors, and then you see a team of people behind them, supporting them. And again, when people interview, I always think of keywords that pop in my mind. And the keyword that came to me when you're talking about the importance of longevity. Even though we may be diagnosed with prostate cancer, with a disease, it does not mean that we can't move forward through it together to have longevity. And hopefully maybe even limit the fear of every time I wake up, oh my gosh, or every time I go to a doctor, am I going to get the diagnosis again? Which leads me to the question of longevity and years down the road. What do you want your legacy and your work to be about?
This is it. I'm going to back up just a little bit to tell you I said, Dr. Detna and the timing of how I came to this space. But what's interesting about that point is that my father had just passed. And I remember sitting at his, homegoing service and hearing about all the stuff I didn't know about. People were walking up to me and telling me about all the stuff that my dad did. He was just my father to me. I knew his business aspect. But I thought, what are people going to say about me? And just how wonderful it is that I was able to benefit from all of that he did for his community. And at the end, it wasn't how much money he had or that his daughter was a doctor or whatever. It was about all the things that he poured into the community. And I thought, as much as I thought that I was doing in medicine, where can I actually be more like my dad in this space? And how can I have a legacy. And this time is so explosive as we think about AI, as we think about the short shelf life of the information that we have. Like, this is a very exciting time in medicine.
And how instant it is,
And
too, at times.
instant, right? And so with that challenge came a certain amount of uncomfortability, discomfort. And I knew then that that's kind of where I needed to be and when I needed to be in this space. And so took on this challenge to be part of that legacy. So that, you know, my daughter Joy, my son Joshua, who've always known me to be a physician, community actor, but that they could actually see me being uncomfortable at every season of my life for the benefit of a community. And so never resting on laurels, never being so comfortable as any physician, scientist, you know, community speaker, TED Talk, or whatever, where I wasn't wanting to push myself. And I wanted to push myself with a team of people like you, who actually were just as in it as I was in this journey. And so a legacy, I always say that I want my tombstone to say she was a mom, but if it had to say something else, I would like it to say she was a mom who cared about her community. And that's what I would like to be. If it says I helped to cure cancer, heal cancer, increase, you know, the length of life for anyone, that's a bonus, because it's about really the ministry of medicine for me and what I can do. And a friend of mine said it best, said, you know, if we do this right, we will die empty, right? And I don't want to make this a morbid conversation. But I want my legacy to be that I've just poured it all. I left it all. I left it all out there.
Okay, because we can't take it with us.
We can't take it with us.
We can't let it out there.
Exactly.
Let it out
so as long as I have it to give, and I can't do everything, right? So this is such a wonderful space that we have in the cancer care journey, because we are benefited from all of the things that we did wrong. We've learned those lessons. We've also realized that the physician's not the smartest ones in the room anymore, right? That the patient's voice is important, that advocates are influencers. We are living where I didn't even know if I used the word influencer 20 years ago in medicine. But we're living in a space where we recognize that you have more power as an advocate, as an influencer with more people than I possibly do in my circle. So why not work together to do this? And so one and one makes 20.
Exactly.
Plus you're my cousins,
Okay,
so
I'm going to see you at the family reunion later next
Family
year.
reunion. Exactly.
and so we leave it with that. Y'all invited to the family reunion too, so y'all come on as well. You know, we can somewhere down there.
But who's making the potatoes?
There you go. See, David, here we go. Look us get in the menu together. Again, we appreciate you for joining with us. What a great time, cousin. Yes. And you said something that was so important. You know, I like to leave with a good word, you know, as we say.
Okay, preach now.
Testing produces perseverance and character. Now, I know that may be the NIV version, you know, but I'm just saying that you talk about that and how we have to go through that uncomfortable time to truly see our character and truly see what God's called us to do, and then our goal, you know, our goal at the end. So let that encouraging you, let that uplift you, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
All right, so that was episode 3 of Clinical Trials Demystified, featuring an interview with Dr. Kim Barbell Johnson. I did see a little bit earlier that Dr. Kim Barbell Johnson is here in the chat. So I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Kim Barbell Johnson, for sitting down with us and letting us share your interview. If you have any questions for her, put them in the chat. I'm just kidding. We won't bother her today. All right, so that episode of Clinical Trials Demystified, we were able to gain a clearer understanding on what clinical trials exactly are, as well as why they are important in advancing research, as well as improving patient outcomes. So now we will go ahead and transition into our next segment, which is iCCaRE Insider. iCCaRE Insider gives us a closer look behind the scenes of people and the work that drive iCCaRE's mission forward. And this episode will be featuring Michelle Fudge. In the meantime, just as another icebreaker, if anyone has ever participated in a clinical trial before, let us know in the chat as we get prepared to watch the next episode of iCCaRE Insider.
to another edition of iCare Insider, where we are talking to people who are behind the scenes. We want you to get comfortable, relax, because we're going to have a great session today. Before we get started, let's go ahead and introduce our guests. Go ahead.
Hello,
Yes, tell us, tell us who you are, your name, what you do, all that good stuff. Tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. My name is Michelle Fudge. I'm the program manager for the Cancer Health Equity Research Program that the iCare Consortium is currently running out of.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the space, Michelle. We are so glad that you are here with us. We're going to spend some time to get to know Michelle and what iCare does and what Michelle does with iCare. We're going to spend some time talking about the professional and personal journey you've been on, and then we're going to switch gears and talk about behind the scenes. What does that look like when it comes to your job, the ups and downs, and how does community relate to it? And then we're going to talk about teamwork. How does your team, the people you work around, advocate for the community? And then last, what does it look like going forward for you and for iCare and the health work that you do, let's say in the next 3, 5, 10 plus years? So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So, first question, what led you to work with iCare?
Absolutely. So I've been in research for 8 years. 7 of those years was in a community-based participatory kind of segment. And once I heard about iCare, it aligned with my past experience and my goals of what I wanted to do as it relates to research.
So tell us about this past experience. What did you do? And as I say, the
Absolutely.
past life.
Right.
But don't touch, certain things we don't. We stay in the past.
Right. Okay. So I started out with doing Alzheimer's research,
Okay.
specifically in the Black community. As you know, the Black community is, they suffer from health disparities as it
Mhm.
relates to Alzheimer's disease the most.
Mhm.
And after doing that a couple of years, I became aware of other disparities that our community suffered from more. And what I wanted to do is kind of explore what that is and see if I could bring awareness to those disparities as well. So I ended up over in cancer research.
Awesome. Well, that sounds awesome. When it comes to health, and health is so broad, but when we take a deeper look into good health, accessible health, especially in the communities where it's lacking, which is the Black and Brown and minority communities, what does that mean to you professionally and also personally?
So to me, it's all about basically health equity, and that what that means to me is bringing opportunities for all populations to reach their best health, for to give everybody the best opportunities to have the best health outcomes
Mhm.
in different sectors, right? So from policy standpoint and advocacy standpoint, education standpoint. So there's so many broad areas that you can go into that. So yeah.
Awesome. When it comes to our background, what who do we look up to get us into this line of work? Who are some of those influences to say, hey, you know what, I want to continue in this journey and I care? Who are some of those influences that help you to where you are
Absolutely.
now?
So obviously, we have a lot of talented healthcare providers in the area. Most notably, Dr. Odetna, of course. She has built her entire career on, championing health equity in our communities. The Dr. Barbell Johnsons, who get to large organizations and bring awareness to the needs of the communities. So there's just so many healthcare providers in our area, Northeast Florida specifically, that are make it their mission to bring awareness and resources to the disenfranchised.
Awesome. When you're talking a little bit about your background, a wide range. You started in the Alzheimer's, correct? And then now we are now in prostate cancer. And I can only imagine just the different spectrums on there. But during this line of work in spectrums, when did that light bulb come off and say, you know what, this is more than just going into a big old parking lot, scanning my QR code and playing with, different needles and stuff? Where does it come to, hey, this is more than just a job?
I think the longer you do it, the more you realize and are able to see the impact come to fruition.
Mhm.
It's easy to do the day to day, I think it's when you're at the food drives and you're at the community outreach events where you actually see it making a difference in the lives of community members that would normally either have access to it or know anything about prostate cancer or any type of health, concerns that plague our communities today.
Mm. And you know what? I think you lit my notes because now with that comment, it makes me now want to go into that second section, which is behind the scenes. And you briefly talked about that of how, the community giving those resources, like I said, if it's a food desert and giving food and things of that nature. What does a typical day look like for you?
Right. So now that I'm more in an administrative role, it's basically, I like to think of my job as a bridge, right? So
Hmm.
bridging community members to various resources within our organization, um, research opportunities, bridging investigators and scientists to other investigators and scientists to collaborate. That's a huge portion of the type of work that we do. Also bridging uh, community-based organizations to other organizations. Some of our smaller businesses. There's an economic empowerment kind of arm to it as well. So um, pretty much day to day, I'm facilitating and coordinating those connections, as well as advocating for staff that are trying to navigate complex and very kind of like black and white systems that, anytime you do anything community, there's a lot of gray area. So
Hmm.
there's not a lot of like set policy or guidelines. So just helping to kind of navigate and overcome some of those barriers.
So definitely sounds like a lot of communication about all forms. I said, "Oh
Yes.
goodness, not just email, y'all. I'm talking about calling, text, and everything,
Everything.
everything."
Yes.
How do you navigate that gray area? Because in the community, we have so many different needs. And again, and our body makeup,
Mhm.
what my makeup and body makeup is going to be different than yours, and so
Mhm.
there may be a medicine
Mhm.
or even a cure that can have the effect that we both have, but how we go about it because of limitations, whether it's
Mhm.
transportation. We see it all the time in our community, transportation issues, lack of access to those things.
Mhm.
How do you manage or get through that gray area?
Mhm. Yeah, so I would say the biggest part about it is communication, keeping the lines of
Hmm.
communication open. When the community feels welcome, they're more apt to bring things to your attention that you may not necessarily be aware that is even a need. Two, when you're in this type of work and you're dealing with a lot of very um, um, I won't say like type A, but very accomplished providers and scientists and all of these people that are just so smart and they're geniuses in their own right. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in your passion and the
Hmm.
work that you do, and you want to do all of these things, but really at the very core of it is what does the community want? What is it that the community needs? And I think if you keep that at the forefront of your mind and just kind of ask and refer to the community for what it is that they want to see and find a way to make it fit with the science in a way that it's going to be easily digestible for the community. It's not such a shock when are trying to navigate those gray areas within the community and actually meet their needs while actually protecting the integrity of the science as well.
Awesome. When especially we just talking about your job, I can just picture you got your pads and you're just going from one building place to another building place and talking and doing this, that, and the other. But what is something that or a task or what is something that most people don't realize about the work that you do?
Sure. I think the legwork. So when I started out in research, it's a lot of the logistics piece. You come to an event, you see all the vendor tables,
Mhm,
but you never ask what it took to actually put that event on. There's
mhm,
a lot of coordination from a lot of different vendors, a lot of different medical groups, and you're just coordinating and facilitating so many moving parts. Um, and you love to see it come together in the
Hmm.
end. You love to
Hmm.
have a successful event. But it's the things, the carrying boxes, the going to storage units, the ordering equipment. And so there's a lot that goes into it to pull off a successful community event.
Yes, because your events are lovely. I'm telling you, I go to these events and I be like, I'm thinking I'm at the Essence Festival, just ready to load up
Don't give
and
us too
give
much.
and
That
give
might
me
be too
my
much.
goodies. I'm telling you, because it's awesome. I mean, y'all have to check out those events. And speaking of that, right quick, let's go ahead and do a plug. If somebody wants to get to know more about you, about these events that they have, where do they go?
Yeah, so we have the iCare website.
Hmm.
We also have, we're active on social media. So
Hmm.
we have LinkedIn pages. We're on X. I'm not sure if we've gotten to Instagram or Facebook. I'll have to check
Hmm.
on that. But I'll make sure that, we disseminate the information so that
Yes.
people will know how to contact us and get in contact with us should they ever want to attend any of those events.
Awesome. So y'all need to get involved. Now we did that part. Back to the questions. I'm sorry, I had to get that in. So when it comes to the biggest challenges in your work, I know we talked about it earlier about pushing through that gray area, but how do you push through on the lines of events? Because it sounds like you do a lot of stuff when it comes to getting information to the community. And there
Mhm,
are times where, like you said, you may have a vendor that's confirmed and
mhm.
they're not able to make it, or let's say you have more vendors than space.
Right.
How do you push through those things to make sure that when the community comes in, they don't see that, oh my gosh, they see, wow, look at all these great things that we have and
Mhm.
information that I can get now. How do you push that type of realm?
I will have to say the biggest piece of that, obviously, we to do this type of work, you cannot do it alone. So I have a wonderful team. Teamwork is huge. You have a team that you all share the same passion. Everybody's willing to jump in and help. You assign things to different team members. They never hesitate to jump in and lend a helping hand. So it really takes a team. It's a team effort for sure.
See, look, she looking at my notes, y'all, because now we go into our next segment, which is teamwork. And you talked about that leading into this realm of teamwork and culture. What is one thing that you do love about your team, my care team? Or you can
Like I
list more than one,
said,
it doesn't matter.
yeah. So I will have to say, it's like I stated earlier. I think we all share a common passion for the type of work that we do, which is when you're choosing. It's like this one thing about work family. We spend more time with them than we do our actual families. But when
Yes.
you have the power to choose them and you actually like them, it makes a difference. So
Hmm.
one thing that's important is that you choose people that share the same passion, that understands the why.
Hmm.
And I think when that's at the forefront of everybody's day to day, and it's at the forefront of their mind, it's easy to do. It just comes natural.
Yeah,
Mhm.
unfortunately, we can't choose that aggravating auntie that just aggravating us at the family reunion. But like you said,
You can
when it
choose
comes,
your work, auntie.
yes, okay, yes, you can choose your work auntie, but like, my auntie, I'm going to my office. Leave me alone and shut that
And
door.
shut the door, right?
Exactly. Um, how do you and your teammates support each other through the highs and lows? I mean, you said it earlier. Sometimes we spend more time with our work folks than we do with our family. And with work, not everything is all work. We go through personal life things. We go
Mhm,
through congratulatory things. We may go through death and things with our family
mhm.
members or our coworkers that may have a passing in the family. But how do you work through, and how does your team work through those highs and lows and with supporting each other?
Yeah. So I think with any team dynamic, there are teammates that are closer to each
Mhm.
other and they build their own relationships within the team,
Mhm.
people that they trust and that they lean on, that they can vent to. Me as a manager, what I try to do is make sure that I'm aware of any resources that are available so that if they were to ever to bring a concern to me or were in need of support, I do make it a priority to try to support the team in the best way that I can, within what is reasonable, right? So, whether it's resources inside of the workplace or outside of the workplace, I have a lot of contacts. So, I just try to keep them connected. I try to do a lot of fun things, the type of work that we do. It's a high burden rate, right? High burnout you experience rather, and it's very taxing and demanding
Mm-hmm.
rather.
Mm-hmm.
So with understanding that, we try to throw some fun in, we try to do some, I try to make sure that wellness is a priority.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage them to take their days off.
Mm-hmm.
If I notice it's been quite a while where they haven't requested PTO, I'm like, you haven't requested PTO in a while, so maybe you should, and I just try to keep those lines of communications open so that they feel comfortable coming to me should they ever have a concern.
Yeah, it's one of those things about that work-life balance. I'm like, Ucha, I want to work for you. Can I go ahead and fill out an application, y'all? I'm telling you, she seemed like an awesome
Yes,
manager.
we would love to
Hey.
have you. Come on, the more the merrier.
Yes. And this question, because we spend a lot of time focusing on like your inner core and your inner team. But this question is going to still rely and focus on your team, but now we are broadening that to, and now including the community into your space with your team. And it's so important when it comes to the community that our voices
Mhm.
are heard, that our voices are shared, that the information that we give is one that is not just, okay, thank you, I noted it, but is worked upon and is given back to us
Mhm.
to where we can have a better quality of life. So, with that being stated, what ways does your team ensure that the Black and minority communities and African American communities and underserved voices are heard and respected and valued?
Yeah. So, when we talk a lot about team, you think of the people that you actually employ.
Mhm,
But one thing we have to keep in mind is that a lot of our partners and collaborators that we collaborate with, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do without them. So they too are teammates, right?
mhm, mhm,
So if they come to me with a concern, I address those in the same manner that I address those who actually receive a paycheck from
mhm,
the organization. But with with that being said, I think having those community members that are identified as our partners, they're incorporated into every thread of just as if they were employed with us. So they're a part of meetings. So that's kind of like that avenue into the community that is like the voice of the community. We invite them to be community scientists where they actually learn things that you're talking about, probably community members that may not have had opportunities to attend
mm,
um, um, secondary and or
mhm,
higher institutions of higher education, but we weave them into every part of everything that we do, so they become investigators. They have opportunities to be on publications. They are a part of every process, and that's what I love about our principal investigator for iCare is that she does make it a point to really incorporate everything that is community into iCare. So I
mm.
think that helps a lot too.
And how, when you do things like that, what is the perception and what is the community's response
Yeah.
when they are a scientist? Sometimes I, especially when you say scientist, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I may have a lab coat and everything else, and I may have to deal with little
Mhm.
frogs and things,
Yeah.
you know what?
Yeah.
When you say these things, sometimes it can be a little bit daunting at first for
Hmm.
a community, again, that doesn't know, who has
Hmm.
never been in this realm and experienced something new. But how does the community receive that, and what are the
Yeah.
things that they have shared back with you with being a part?
Um, I think they respect the fact that they are being included
Mm-hmm.
um, to that extent, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and while there is some hesitation or even some imposter syndrome that might set
Mm-hmm.
in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think again those lines of communication and them being able to say, I really didn't understand when you said XYZ in the meeting, can you help me? So it is a lot of training, a lot of retraining, a lot of repeating. There's a lot of patience that comes with it, but again, if this is your passion, um, this is the very thread of what we want to do is basically we want to empower the community to be able to do this on your own. A lot of the things that we do are grant funded. Grant some money doesn't last forever, so we want to empower the community to be able to sustain what it is that we're bringing, the resources that we're bringing. When we're long gone or have to move on to the next community, you should be able to, the community should feel empowered to be able to continue the work that we've done on their own. And that's the whole purpose of this.
Exactly. You said two
Mhm.
things that are so important: patience, which you got to pray for me because I'm still working on my patience, so patience number one, but then also too as well, teaching people how to fish, not just always giving them the
Absolutely.
fish, because when
Yes.
you teach them these things and know where to go, they're more likely to sustain
Mm-hmm.
when life happens. And even like you said, when things happen
Mm-hmm.
in our world,
Mm-hmm.
when resources are constantly being taken away from other
Yes.
revenues and other streams. So awesome. Thank you so much. As we're getting ready to close, it's now time to, as we say, look ahead. Look ahead. Look ahead. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What are things that you would like to see done? What changes you would like to see done? So, with looking ahead, what impact do you hope your work and eye care will have within the next, let's say, 5 years,
Mhm.
10 years?
Yeah. So having been in this work a while, almost 9 years now, I think when you're in it, it's very hard to see the progress.
Mm,
But looking back, you can definitely see we're not where we were 10 years ago. I like to say this type of work is a thankless job. You don't always get recognition.
mhm,
You don't
mhm,
always get accolades, but at the very end of the day, it is about health equity and ensuring that all populations have opportunities to achieve their best health outcomes. Specifically for me, I'm in the Black and Brown community, so that's the community that's my focus. But I think there's so many pockets of people that are doing this type of work for their communities, and that's what it's all about. Eventually, the hope is that we'll get to a day where all populations have we call it health justice now. Equity is even in the playing field, but justice is to make sure that we all start out, at the same level and have the same opportunities to reach the same success, as far as it relates to health. And I think when you just keep that in mind and keep that as a priority, it makes every day that just seems so mundane, repetitious, and like I said, even with the burnout, it's what keeps you going. So,
mhm. And you said a word, justice, that
mhm,
is so key. We see justice and
mhm.
injustice
Yes.
here in this world. What do you say to that individual that says, hey, I want to be a part of the change? I want to be a part of that health justice so that I can receive better, my family can receive better, my friends,
Mhm.
my co-workers, my big mama down the street,
Yes.
what do you say to that individual that wants to
Mhm.
get involved in that health justice?
Yes.
What would you tell them?
I will say, start off small for those who are not in this type of work, who may not consider themselves professionals at all, and it may seem daunting to be able to kind of hop into large meetings and large task force and groups to try to do this work. It doesn't always take that. It can be something as simple as volunteering at your local senior center or
Mhm.
volunteering at your YMCA, or it just starts with, you just have to take a step. Even those who give back their time and volunteer in their local churches.
Mhm.
Our faith based organizations are a huge part of the work that we do. You just take a step to get involved. That may grow into something that becomes much larger than what you envisioned. But I think you just take a step in the right direction, and eventually it'll grow into whatever that passion of yours is, whether it's philanthropy, or just lending a helping hand from time to time.
Okay, reach out and touch someone, lend that helping hand,
Yes.
and take that step.
Yes.
Oh,
Reach
don't,
one.
what?
Teach
Don't,
one.
don't look. Stop it now. Stop it. Don't get me started now. Last thing, I always have to leave something, fun and leave something on the thought of the people who are looking at this show. If you can give a quote that sums up what you do, that sums up eye care, that sums up your purpose on what you do in the
Hmm.
community, what quote would you leave us with and why?
Okay. There's a quote. There's a saying that said, um, they say Maya Angelou said it, but I don't know if that has been confirmed or not.
Mhm.
But Some people may not remember what you said. They may not even remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. So
Yes.
that makes a lasting impact on me. If I can just make somebody feel good in their day or make a difference in someone that brings them joy, then I've done my job for the day.
All right. I love it. Joy, unspeakable joy. I love it. I love it. I'm not going to cut up with you. See, before we close on out, how can they get in contact with you and with the organization again?
Yeah, sure. So connect with us on social media,
Mhm.
reach out on X or any of our social media.
Or more importantly, if you just go to Google, hey, Google, you can find pretty much anything, AI, all that good stuff.
Right.
Type in I care and you will find what you need. Again,
Yes.
we welcome you and we thank you for spending this time with us wherever you are. And stay tuned because we have much more to come. Thank you and have a great day.
All right, so that was an episode 2 of iCare Insider featuring Michelle Fudge. Now we do have a little bit of some extra time, so I'm just curious about what is one thing that you had a misunderstanding when it comes to clinical trials that you just learned wasn't accurate? And then also another question for the audience is there a specific title or position from the iCare Consortium in which you would want to watch an episode about next? Is there any behind the scenes work from anyone that you're curious about what they do? Let us know in the comments. Yes, exactly. I think that was an amazing quote. People will always remember how you made them feel. So I think that was amazing. And I have heard of that quote before. Yes. Both interviews were amazing. The interview with Dr. Kim Barbell Johnson, it gave a lot of insight, as well as the interview with Miss Michelle Fudge. It gave great insight as to what she does, all the amazing work that she puts in every single day, as well as insight about just who she is as a person. Would love to see insider from the Africa team. I would love to see that too. I know the Africa team, they work very hard. They're doing a lot. I would love to know what a day in their life is and everything that they're up to. So hopefully we're able to make that happen very soon. Absolutely. You just have to take the next step. Yes. Exactly. You know what, Dr. Kim Barbaro Johnson, you can definitely do that. You can definitely host the interview for for the Africa team in Nigeria. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. We would like to see more on a day in the life of Black prostate cancer survivors versus African based prostate cancer survivors. This is actually amazing. This is an amazing idea. And I agree. Not only should we get a perspective on prostate cancer survivors here in the States, but also perspective from prostate cancer survivors in Africa, kind of like a compare and contrast to see are their day in a life similar? Are they different? I think that is a great idea. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for Michelle for all of your leadership and everything you've done, all the amazing work that you've done and will continue to do. Okay. See if there's any more questions or comments. Okay. And then from earlier, if anyone's ever been in a clinical trial, we said Dr. Kim Barbo Johnson has said she's done a dermatology. How did that go? And would you do it again? Or are you one and done? I personally have not done a clinical trial before. Prior to working with iCCaRE Consortium, I feel like I was a little bit scared, of course, with, the Tuskegee experiment and all like the history that we've seen with clinical trials. It does seem a little bit scary, but years with working with iCCaRE, I've noticed that, not only is clinical trials not scary, but it's very important. And it's very, would love to see a day in the life of the PIs in Africa. Absolutely. I would love to see that as well. I would love to know what they're up to every single day. I think it would be great for us to all be aware and to be able to give them their accolades. Definitely agree. Yes, they said they would love to have you, Dr. Kim Barrow-Johnson. So there's your invite. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. You definitely need to be vulnerable. You definitely need to be trusting and just know that they, hopefully have your best interest. And yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. If anyone does want to be a part of a clinical trial, you have to be vulnerable and you have to kind of just let them take the lead. They know what they're doing. So leave that up to them. All right, so it does look like we are wrapping up to that hour mark. I just want to thank everybody so much for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed our episodes of iCCaRE Insider as well as Clinical Trials Demystified. And I hope everybody has an amazing start to the weekend. Take care, get some rest, and we will see you the next time. Bye.
I am fine. I'm 45 now. I feel great. I can go to the gym and work out with the big dogs. Trust me, I can. And that's after me having prostate and really lost everything. I have no strength or none of that. But I work myself back up where I'm at. I feel great. It can happen, guys. Trust me on this.